The Gigantic Bell. Long, long ago, in an old city in China, there lived a wise man named Lu Ban. He was known far and wide for the magnificent houses and bridges that he had built. He was a master craftsman. Although he was famous, Lu Ban never believed that he was too important or too busy to listen to other people, and he always shared his own ideas with them. Long after he died, Chinese craftsmen remembered the great work of Lu Ban. They wanted to be as wise as he had been. This is a story about some craftsmen who made a gigantic bell. The story of the gigantic bell. Some craftsmen were asked to make a gigantic bell for a beautiful temple outside the city walls. The temple was so beautiful that they knew the bell had to be just as magnificent. The head craftsman had learned many lessons from the stories other people had told him about Lu Ban's work. The head craftsman showed his men what to do. For months and months, the men all worked together making the bell. It was huge. It was about 3 times as tall as a man. When at last the gigantic bell was finished, the craftsmen stood back to admire their work. The men were so proud of the bell because it had beautiful patterns. But the men had forgotten that they had to move the huge bell from the place where it was made all the way to the temple outside the city. They wondered how they were going to get it there. Horses and oxen were not strong enough to pull it, even though the road was very flat all the way. They looked at the huge bell in despair. They thought about it day and night, but no one could think of a way to move such a heavy bell. Several weeks went by. Nobody had any ideas about how to move this gigantic bell all that distance. It stayed firmly in the place where it had been made. Then the head craftsman called a meeting. He brought with him some food and drinks. He thought that this might cheer up the men and help them think of a way to move the bell. But again, no one had any new ideas. They just gathered around the table and looked at one another. As one of the men filled a cup for someone else, he spilled some of the drink on the table. It ran over the rim of the cup and down the side. A man at the end of the table stretched out his arm. "Don't worry about lifting the cup," he said. "If you slide it carefully along to me, no more will spill out." The man did just this, and the cup slid smoothly along the wet table without spilling a drop. The head craftsman watched for a moment. Then he spoke up in a very excited voice. "I have the answer," he said. "I know how we can move the bell." All the men leaned forward to listen. The head craftsman stood up. "Watch," he said. "Pretend this cup is the huge bell. We want to move it from here to there." He slid his cup smoothly along the wet and slippery table. "Of course," said one of the other men. "That is the answer. We could slide the bell all the way to the temple. We wouldn't have to use an ox cart." "Yes," said the head craftsman. "In winter it is so cold that the water freezes into ice. Ice would make the ground very slippery." At once the men set to work to dig a shallow channel from the bell through the city and out toward the beautiful temple. This took them many months. Winter was approaching just as they finished, and the men filled the channel with water. In no time at all, the water was frozen solid. The men slid the gigantic bell across the slippery surface of the ice all the way to the temple. From that day on, people believed that the head craftsman was very wise, just as Blue Band had been. The end.